there, everybody. Matt Heller here, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting and the author of The Myth of Employee Burnout. Here with another exciting episode of Three Questions. This is where I get to ask three questions of a guest, they get to ask three questions of me, and we just see where the conversation goes. We have no idea what those questions are going to be when we start, so all of our answers are unrehearsed and unprepared. Today, I am super excited to welcome Dallas Hobbs to the call. Dallas is the guest services manager at the Fountains Resort in Orlando. Dallas and I go back quite a few years when we were both working at Universal Orlando, and I'm super excited to hear what Dallas's questions are for me. So without further ado, Dallas, why don't you say hi and tell us a little bit about what you do now. Got that out of the way.
So when I met him as head of learning and development. And so my first career into hospitality started with Universal Orlando. And so a lot of what I am and how I learned today was from Matt. So I'm very excited to be here now. I went from rides and attractions into resorts and resort operations. And now I'm the guest services manager for the Fountains Resort. And I couldn't be happier.
And you're relatively new to that, correct?
Just over a year now. So okay. About a year and a couple months.
Excellent. Fantastic. Are you ready for your first question then?
Shoot.
All right. So speaking of us knowing each other for a while, people who've read my blog and my book probably know your name because I've quoted you a lot of things that you've done over the years. Your success with building teams and maybe even some slightly unconventional ways that you work as a manager.
Okay.
But I don't want to talk about your success. I want you to talk about any failures that you've had. Are there times when you've tried something and it just didn't work? And if so, what might be some lessons that you learned from those?
So everybody else gets beach ball questions, and you're like fast pitching right off the bat.
Boom! I knew you could take it.
All right, so anytime that I have failed in training somebody.
Yeah. By the way, I do have a beach ball question, but it's coming up later.
All right, well, thank you. So yes, every team that you encounter is going to be different. And everybody that you, as you get moved around and you're the new person on the team, which I was this time around, it's all about trying to gain respect with those people. Sometimes, though, when you're trying to do that, you're going to fail and step on landmines, as I like to call them. So there's times where you're talking to somebody and you're trying to, find that commonality that you two can have. And you say something you shouldn't say. And you don't realize it until after the fact. And that's what I call a conversation landmine. Because at that point, anything you say is just going to go downhill from there. I think my sarcasm, which is always something I try to work on, does come across wrong. So if I don't spend some time with somebody first before I bring out that humor in me, because I use humor to diffuse a lot of situations, that has gotten me in difficult situations at times with associates. And these are people on my team, a team I need to respect me. And all of a sudden, I have now offended them. In the history of any leader anywhere, we have all offended somebody in your ways. I mean, you're not in these roles without dealing with people. And when you deal with people, you're going to offend them. I doubt any leader consciously wakes up every day and says, I'm going to offend people today. And that's my goal. So that has been a challenge because I'm not trying to offend people. I'm trying to build a relationship with them. And I really think it's the sarcasm. It's a second language to me. That's the only other language I speak other than bad English. And that's been my struggle. And that's what I continue to struggle with. But it's something I'm aware of.
How did you become aware of that? Like, was there a specific point where you said, ooh, I got to pull this back?
So, yes. Now, that probably started when I offended my first guest, and it was something I did not mean to do, obviously. Back at Earthquake and the Magic of Effects, or up there, and I was spieling for the attraction, and the attraction goes down. Now, when you're in a spieling attraction and the ride goes down, we all know that there's a stall clock comes up, or you're being told over an earpiece, this is how long it's going to take, stretch your material out. At a certain point, you start running out of material. And when you're just freeballing and you've got stuff coming off the top of your head, I was talking about the blue screen and the blue screen effects. And there happened to be a blue screen behind me. And I said, well, it's just like a weatherman. When a weatherman or person is standing in front of a blue screen, they don't actually see a map behind them. They just see the blue screen. So if it wasn't for the monitors off to the side that they would look at to see what is happening behind them, they would just be waving their arms behind them looking retarded. Well, the word retarded at that point was a normal part of my speech. And that then there was somebody apparently in the audience that took offense to that and walked from one side of the park all the way to guest relations at the front of the park, and that was my first negative guest comment. From then on, I've started becoming aware of my speech and what things I say. There are times I have offended, like I said, associates just by a joke. I would come up to them and say something, and they'd be like, "Oh, man, why did you say that to me?" So pretty early on, it started with Universal. Once you spend with those demographics and those groups of people, and you're trying to build those teams, that's when, as a leader, you have to be conscious of what you say until you build that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I don't think I'd heard that story before, but really does go to show, you have to be conscious of what you're saying and really your audience, who will appreciate it and who might get offended.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I'm ready.
Mine is actually very similar to what you just asked me.
Okay.
So you've spent a lot of time going around to different companies and different teams, and hopefully you've been very successful at it, obviously. I hear you're working on another book, maybe. So I want to know, what has been your most difficult team or individual that you had to turn around, and what made that so difficult, especially from an expert in your field as you are?
So we're talking about an individual that I've had to turn around.
Individual or team, well, whichever one you think would tell the best story.
Okay, well, I will share with you an example of a team that I'm still hoping to work with because I don't think I've quite turned them around as far as I'd like to turn them yet. So there's a team that I worked with that when they first originally came to me, they said, we've got a customer service issue. We have people that don't want to provide customer service. We don't provide great customer service. And I was able to look at some of their secret shoppers report. I actually went to the facility, and they're doing pretty darn well. Like from everything that I could see, they were doing well. But there was a perception internally that they weren't providing great customer service because they had people at different parts of the organization that weren't always supposed to provide customer service, but they were being called to do it at certain times when it was busy and so on. You know how that goes. Well, there was a lot of pushback from those people to want to come provide, to go into those customer service roles because they had other things to do. But when I really got down to it, it really came down to, and I know you're not going to be surprised by this, it came down to a communication issue. And so what I realized after I started working with them is, first of all, I went in and we did a customer service type training, and kind of refocusing on what some of those things they should be doing and things like that. Right. And then I got to really spend time with people and realized that while they probably could have used some of those customer service tips, what was really going on behind the scenes was this really nasty communication issue and leadership type issue. And so I worked with them again, and I said, okay, we're going to tackle this communication piece. And it probably didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked it. And I will take some of the blame for that by probably the way I approached it. Because what I did was I brought a whole bunch of people together to focus on this, and that really wasn't my first gut reaction. My gut reaction was, let's get the 2 or 3 people that really have issues together and bring them together, steel cage death match, and let's really work this out. Well, then as I got talking to the client and things, and it kind of seemed to spread a little bit further than what I was originally thinking about doing. And so again, we brought in this whole group. And I don't think we got to some of the core issues that were really impacting the team, at least not as deep as we could have. So where it was unfortunately left was that there's a couple of people that felt like they were attacked. And they felt like, because we were talking about communication styles and how different people interact with one another, it was the people that are more aggressive and more forthright with their communication, that they felt like they were being attacked because this was the only time the other people had ever actually communicated to them how they really felt, right? So there had never been any feedback to them, and they were some of the senior people in the organization. So some of the people that we worked with in that session, really got a lot out of it, and they told me that this was great, and thank you so much for this, and it's really helped me on a personal level. But there's still some at least in my mind some nagging issues there communication wise, where I don't see that the people that really needed it, I don't think they really got that they were as much of the issue as they really are. So I chalk that up as one of the things that, if I could go back and do it again, I would love to approach it differently. If I can, work on getting back with them, I definitely would approach it differently to try to fix it. So that's probably one of the ones that's kind of sticking in my side a little bit.
Because there's some unresolved conflict going on over there.
Exactly, and quite frankly, and I'll just be real honest with you, I think I may have caused some of the conflict because
I told you.
What's that?
Landmines.
Exactly. Well, because I didn't go with my gut on how I felt like it should have been handled in the first place, and that's why I think it's one of those things that if I could do it again, I would do it much differently. I know I can't, so I can just kind of keep an open relationship with them, and hopefully someday I can get back there and help them in the way that I know I can if I kind of go with my gut, if that makes sense.
If the check clears, right?
Yeah, well, the check is cleared, so that's always good. But you bring up an interesting point, because when I was working at Universal, and you would come to my classes and other people would come to my classes, and there was a responsibility there. But now that I'm working on my own, I feel even more of a weight to really give people what's going to be worth it for them, because they're paying me, they're bringing me to their place. So that's a huge weight on my shoulders, and something I take very, very seriously.
I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're very passionate about what you do, so that's a given.
Thank you. Excellent. So I'm going to move my beach ball question up one, and then I'll give you the second harder one last. All right.
I got you.
All right. So this one, it will still have sort of a serious tone, but so I want you to picture yourself as the commander of a spaceship. Okay. You can pick anyone. They can be somebody who's living or dead, a fictional character, real person, but you have to pick somebody to be your second in command.
Okay.
Who would that person be, and why?
Probably somebody nobody knows, and if he ever sees this, he would flip out. Well, you might know him, Brian Julian.
Yes.
Yeah. So probably the only other person that I've ever met that probably would rival you in your roller coaster fandom.
Okay.
He same things. He does road trips and he goes on roller coasters. He is an operations guy through and through, and he's one of the first managers that I dealt with at Universal Studios, and I'm still friends with him today. And the reason that I would pick him is because we balance each other out in some things. There are times that I get very flighty and I start thinking about wonderful, wild, crazy ideas. And he's always been that person to really look at me and go, but how are you going to do that? I would want to do something very grand and something wonderful and amazing. He's like, how much it's going to cost to do that? Really, that person to ground me and to bring me down. I mean, I would love the opportunity to work with him again. He is still very successful at Universal. He's on to director level type stuff now. And I do wish him the best. But if I ever had the opportunity to work with him again, I would, be it on a spaceship or be it just on a simple ride somewhere.
Okay.
That's who I'd pick.
Okay, excellent. See, that one wasn't so tough.
Great question. So I have one. This one's a little more near and dear to what I'm currently doing right now, which is recruiting. And you dealt a lot with that in your past. And everybody in the hospitality industry will tell you that you are constantly recruiting. You are always going to be hiring people. It's just the nature of the business, thankfully. If you're good at what you do, then people are leaving to go on to better things. Not everybody wants to be a ride operator or a front desk agent. People have greater ambitions than that. That's wonderful. However, this day and age, it's getting more difficult to recruit people from the same old tired, I have an ad out on Career Builder, or I have an ad in the newspaper. What are some kind of off the chart thinking or outside the box thinking of ways that you would recruit and that you've seen that you recruit that you've seen that are successful?
Excellent. Well, I'm sure you can answer this question too, but because you're in that business right now, I still think there is value in recruiting people that know people that already work there. So, birds of a feather flock together. So if Dallas is on my team and I know Dallas is a rock star, he's probably got some friends that are rock stars too. And especially in this business where, you ask people, why did they get a job here? Well, my friend works here. It's a very social business. And of course, then you have to manage that friendship once you get them on staff, or maybe they work in different departments or whatever the case may be. But, if you can get your team members and your associates to help recruit, then it's not just you recruiting, it's 10 or 15 or 1,000 people who are helping you to recruit. So I think that's a great place to start. That's a little different, like you said, than putting an ad out and things like that. What's that?
So you're saying word of mouth?
Word of mouth, absolutely. I also think there's some people who've had success and some interesting things that go on when you look for people who are already fans of what you do. So that's where you can really tap into if you have a Facebook fan page and you notice the people that are interacting or that are sharing your posts a lot. Those are potentially people that can serve your guests well because they already like and understand what it is that you do. I think one of the biggest challenges any employer has is not only getting the recruits in the door and getting them through the application process, but getting them to buy into your culture. So if you've already got somebody that understands who you are and understands the kind of product you're trying to deliver to your guests, then now I just have to teach them how to run the register or fold the t-shirts or whatever it is, and boom, they're going to be able to be a part of that much easier.
Yeah, I've always felt that you can teach anybody how to run a register. You can teach anybody how to push buttons. You can teach people how to run your software, but there's a lot of stuff that you can't teach, and that is, like you said, getting along with other people and having people that believe what you believe.
Right. So how do you find them?
So funny, I wish I'd asked you this question before. I had an interview not too long ago where that question was asked of me, and you answered it so much better than I did.
Well, feel free to use my answer if you have to,
I will. But I have done word of mouth. And in fact, my team that I have right now, my last staff meeting with them, I flat out said, I need people. And I want people that you already like. You're part of this team. I want people that are going to be a part of this team that are going to get along with you already, because I can teach them to do anything. I can't teach them to like you. And thankfully, some of my people have rose to the challenge. They put posts on Facebook and they said, this job is hiring. And now I have 6 people in my queue waiting to start, which is wonderful, because until that, I was in a rut. And there was quite a few people that I guess weren't quite the caliber that I was looking for. They would come in and just in t-shirt and jeans and just be like, so what do I do here? What's the pay? Those people aren't really the motivations type that I'm looking for. So I had a lot of duds. So that's why I wanted to ask about the recruiting.
No, and I think having that standard up front, gives you somebody or gives you an idea of what you're truly looking for. So you're not looking for just somebody that can, that has a pulse. Somebody that does have a more guest service skills or likes what you do already. That gives you something to look for. I also think, and I know not everybody can do this, but when you look at what a company like Zappos does, and they pay people to leave essentially, in a nutshell, if you don't work out, here's a month's salary or whatever. Go someplace that you do work, you will work out. I don't know that. And it's tough in the hospitality business, no doubt about it, when you're hiring so many people and they're young and they're really not on a career path yet. But that attitude that, this may not be the right thing for you, and you may not know that until you're 6 months in. Yeah. Okay, so let's try to figure that out together. I think that's part of continually recruiting, right? Is you're continually recruiting people in, but you also have to continually recruit people out.
Recruit people out.
I just made that up. I don't know if that's a term. But
that's amazing. That's what your next book should be called. Recruiting people out. It sounds so much better than managing people out.
Right? Yeah, I'm going to recruit them. I'm going to recruit for another employer.
You need to trademark that right now, because as soon as I get off this call, I am stealing that website address right now.
All right, fantastic.
That's fine. I'm going to charge you an arm and a leg.
All right. Recruit people out. I like it. Well, it's similar to something I saw. When you have somebody, and I know you've worked with people like this, so are just not working out. and you either manage them to rise to your standards or you manage them out,
Right.
or that type of thing. So we're going to now recruit people out.
I love it. I'm on board. I'm a huge fan right now.
Oh, good. Me too.
All right. Your turn or my turn?
I think I have one more for you.
Okay.
All right. So one of the hardest things to do, as we know, is to be the middle manager.
Yep.
To have people that report to you and you have to report to a boss. And you talked earlier about gaining respect. So I'd love to hear sort of your thoughts and your strategies on not only gaining respect from your team members, your associates, but also balancing that relationship when you have a boss that may be saying things that maybe you have to deliver bad news, or there's, you know what I mean, to be caught in the middle.
Right.
So how do you navigate being caught in the middle?
I feel like I'm being interviewed by myself. So I ask this question of any leader that I hire. So any supervisor or assistant manager, anybody I'm hired into a leadership role, I ask a very similar question. I'm sure we probably all do. With this one, any great leader will tell you you are a filter. You disseminate information. So when information is coming down at me, it's coming down very short and very quick. Somebody that I watch a lot, Simon Sinek or something. Yeah. He had a very amazing quote that I still use today, which is email is great for exchange of information. It's immediate, it's wonderful, and it's a fantastic tool that we all use for exchanging information. What email is terrible at is communicating. And that communication doesn't always happen from up above. So the worst thing I can do is take an email that says, Dallas, your team needs to do this. Why isn't it happening? And I just go, click forward, team, do this. Because that's not being communicated properly to my team, because they're not going to understand, because they don't have the relationship that I have with the person above me. So how I build that respect is disseminating the information both ways. So when it's coming down, I'm going to my team, I'm going to package that information and whatever's been given to me and say, okay, this is the direction we would like to go. And I say we because I'm a part of everybody above me. I don't just say, well, Matt told me to do it, so you guys got to do it. Sorry. It goes the other direction too. My team comes to me with complaints. They'll come to me with issues, and how I address those issues and pass those things up is, again, how I build that respect, because now I am sharing, I'm a bridge of communication between these two people. So my higher ups, right now, my director and my general manager, feel more involved because they know what's going on with my team. And so when they come by and they see my team, they find out things like, oh, I hear you just had a wonderful birthday, or you just got off a cruise, or I heard about the new cat you just got, various things like that, which, again, is the bridge and brings things together. So I disseminate information.
Excellent. Interesting you use the word bridge, or the term bridge, because I tend to use that as well. And when I'm talking to people about it, it's you're either the bridge or the brick wall. And I find it can be very easy for people to be the brick wall.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've seen that as well too. So excellent. I think I love that piece. I had not heard that piece about the communication, the email. Good
Yep.
for information but not communication. I love that too. So I'm going to write that one down as well. Excellent. Thank you.
We're talking about things they're writing down, so this isn't a question. This is just a mat. So if anybody who has made it this far in the video, they can look. So this is my mat story, really quick.
Okay.
One of the things that I still use today, by the way, I've been misquoting you my entire career, so don't get me wrong. So this may or may not have happened, but in my mind, this happened. One of your classes, you were learning to teach yourself on how to ask questions of the group. One of the things that you said you had a bad habit of was, do you have any questions? At the end of any module or session or whatever section you were doing in whatever training classes you were doing, you would say, do you have any questions? Or who has questions? Things like that. But everything you taught was how to ask open-ended questions. And so the class that I was in, you told all of us that if you ever said that, to yell at you and to tell you, because what you were trying to say was, what questions do you have for me? And because that forces the person not to say yes or no, and to actually think, wait, he wants to know. He has questions. Wait, I have questions for him. And that I have continued to use in anybody I've trained, in any classes I've ever taught, in any staff meetings I've ever done, even in interviews. I have asked, what questions do you have for me? So that is kind of the impact that you've had on me from something really silly and stupid from way back in the day that still has an impact now.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I honestly forgot about that, but I mean, once you brought it up, of course I remember. And I did have people yelling at me and throwing things at me because I would not ask a open-ended question. But that's how I learned. That's how I got reinforcement to do that. So thank you for bringing that up and for yelling at me. I'm sure in the past for asking something closed.
So, as the student to the master, well, I'm not worthy. What this is kind of a two-part question. This is your last question.
Okay.
Who has had that type of impact on you and your career, and what's something that person or somebody else has done that sticks out in your mind that you still do today because of them?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is a guy named Dave Wasapka. Dave was my manager when I was at Valley Fair. I was an operations area manager. He was actually director of operations. And Dave had a couple things that he did that I try to emulate. Number one, he was really good at sort of getting to the root cause or the heart of a matter, and I remember being in meetings where there were two other managers and Dave, so it was kind of a 4-person leadership team, and we would be going on back and forth about something, and he'd say, hold on, wait a minute. He'd say, now I think we're talking about a couple of different things, and he would be able to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Put into perspective those different topics that we were actually talking about and get us to think about those. He also, and this is going to sound a little corny, but he was also really good about getting us to look at ourselves first before we pointed the blame at somebody else. Okay? And he always did what my mom taught me, when you're pointing your finger at somebody, you've got 3 more pointing back at you. And so he really got us to think about what's been my impact. So maybe it was something with a another department, and we're complaining about those foods people, the merchandise people, and he would say, okay, now wait a minute, what about you? What did you do that might have contributed to that in a negative way or whatever? So he got us to do that. The other thing that he did, so I think it's kind of 3 main things, is that he was not afraid to jump in and learn anything that he needed to learn about the business. And I remember specifically, he inherited sort of the phone system in the park, and I think he had a little experience with it before, but all of a sudden he was now having to learn about how the phone system worked and all these different things about it. And I mean, he jumped in and he learned it. And that's something I really respected about him, and I think is something I try to emulate. If something I need to know, I got to go learn it. And I think about Dave every time I do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Was that all the parts of your question, or was there a follow-up to that?
Well, that was just the 2 parts.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Who had that impact on you, and what's something that they did that you still do today?
Got it. Okay. Very good.
But you answered that very well.
Thank you. Well, I think that's all my questions.
That's mine.
Okay.
I have some more after this, but
okay.
Nobody else needs to see that.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, Dallas, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It was really great chatting, just like we used to do when we were at Universal, and I really appreciate all your questions and your honesty and your answers. And anybody who's watching, please let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time on 3 Questions.
Thank you.